Hello, this is Johnny, and in this video I'm going to write some code to control the animation tree we made in the previous video. I also created an assault rifle so we can properly implement the holster and weapon animations. I exported it inside my project folder using Blender's GLTF exporter. To attach the gun with the player, I'm going to add a bone attachment node on the skeleton, and I'm going to name it gun attachment. I'm going to add a spatial and call it rifle and drag and drop the gun here. I'm going to attach this to the right hand of the player. I'm going to scale and reposition it so it fits our player. I did make the original player animations using this gun as the reference inside Blender. That's why the gun matches perfectly with the weapon animations of the player. Obviously, shooter games are not gonna have just one type of weapon, so we would need to match the player's hands with each corresponding weapon. It can be done using inverse kinematics, but I found that it's actually easier to make different base animations for different types of weapons and blend them inside the animation tree. If you can make an assault rifle animation, you can duplicate and modify a little to fit a sniper or shotgun animation, which is also good for performance as opposed to using inverse kinematics. So I'm going to create two new inputs, F for holster and X for crouch. In the code, I created a reference for the rifle node in the bone attachment. I also created some string variables to hold the paths to the node inside the animation tree. And here I created two variables, weapon blend target and crouch stand target, to use as flags. Here 0 means holster and 1 means weapon. And here 0 means crouch and 1 means standing upright. I use integers instead of booleans so we can set these values directly to the nodes inside the animation tree. You can notice here I've changed my code a little bit. I simplified the code for the sprint toggle system, and this way gives a better performance than using the if statement, as we don't have to check anything. Just like toggling the booleans without if statement, you can also toggle between 0 and 1 by subtracting the current value from 1. So by pressing the holster key, the weapon blend is going to toggle between 0 and 1, and I'm going to toggle the visibility of the rifle node the same way. I'm going to do the same with the crouch button, and here I'm just going to set the crouch stand target as the value for the CS transition node inside the animation tree. I also created two more color rectangles for holster and crouch buttons, and right here at the bottom of our code, I'm going to loop the value of the weapon blend node inside the animation tree towards the value of the weapon blend target. I'm going to do the same with the roll blend, where 0 means roll without weapon and 1 means roll with weapon. This way we're going to have a smooth transition between holster and weapon animations. You can see the player can now switch between holster and weapon states and crouching and standing states. The holster and weapon animations for the roll also works very smoothly even while executing the roll. So now I'm going to create a new variable called crouch walk speed so that we get a different movement speed while crouch walking. As the value 1 for crouch stand target means standing upright and 0 means crouching, we're going to use that to switch between walk speed and crouch walk speed. You can also entirely avoid the crouch stand target variable and use the value of CS transition to define crouching or standing, but I'm using this way for the sake of consistency so that we don't lose track of what defines what in the code. I'm also checking for crouch stand target here so that sprinting is disabled while crouching. So here in the bottom of the code, I'm going to set the value of the crouch IW blend as the velocity length divided by the crouch walk speed. This way, when the velocity moves between 0 and crouch walk speed, we always get the result as a linear interpolation between 0 and 1, which is what we need to move between crouch idle and crouch walk animations. So you can see the crouch idle walk blend is working. So now I'm going to add the code for the jump animations, and we also need to change the hand position in crouch so that it doesn't look so weird like this. But before I do that, I'm going to clean up the code a little by replacing the string path from the older project by the string variables we created. So when the player is on floor, I'm going to set the AG transition as 1, else the AG transition will be 0. This way we're going to switch between air and ground states. While in midair, I'm going to lerp the jump value towards the vertical velocity divided by the jump magnitude. This way, when the vertical velocity reaches the jump magnitude, we're going to see the jump up animation, and when the vertical velocity becomes negative, we're going to see the fall down animation. While in midair, the edge weapon transition will also be 0, which means the player's hands will be a little upwards. And while on floor, I'm going to set the edge weapon transitions value as the crouch send target value, so when the player is crouching, this will be 0, and the hands will be upwards like in jumping state. So you can see the jump up and fall down animations are blending with the vertical velocity. And the player's hands are upwards while in midair and while crouching. So now I'm going to write the code for the aim system, but before that, I'm just going to separate the codes so we don't get lost. The aiming state can be true if 3 conditions are matched. If we are pressing the aim button and the roll is not active and the weapon blend target is 1, which means the player has weapon. If these conditions are matched, I'm going to set the aim transition as 0 if the aim transition is 1. This way, this line gets executed only once. And in the not aiming state here, I'm going to set the aim transition as 1. I'm going to drag these lines in here and change this to roll active, so when rolling, the player will look towards the direction vector, else the player will look towards the camera's forward direction, which is defined by the Y rotation of the H node here. And while not aiming, the player will always look towards the direction. I'm going to drag these lines inside the aiming state as we're going to have the strafe mechanism while aiming. I'm also going to duplicate this line and do the same thing for the crouch walk blend space. These are the blend space 2D nodes which gives the 8-way strafe animations for both walk and crouch walk. I'm also going to lerp the value of the IWR blend nodes towards 0 and the value of the crouch IW blends towards 1. So the blend space 2D nodes are activated for both crouching and standing states. By doing this, we're effectively switching to strafe mode, and rather than using the idle animations from here, we're going to use the idle animation from the center of the blend space 2D nodes. So in the aiming state, we're forcing the blend nodes to stay in the walk strafe value, and we're moving the blend positions in the blend space nodes for the strafe animations. Now in the not aiming state, we're going to do the opposite, which means we're going to force the blend space nodes to stay in the forward walk direction, which is this value right here, and we're going to move the blend amount of the blend nodes for the movement animations using the linear equations we worked in the previous project. This way the player will only walk forward towards the direction vector in the not aiming state. I'm also going to set the value of the IR rifle blend to 0 when the velocity is less than or equal to walk, and here when the velocity is between walk and run speed, it's going to follow this function here, which is the linear interpolation between 0 and 1 inside the straight line between walk speed to run speed. In the previous demo, I provided all the explanations of how these linear equations work. So this way the player will have idle rifle animation layered with the idle and walk animations, and when the player starts to run, the blend of idle rifle to run rifle animations is going to be layered with the blend of walk to run animations. Also in the bottom of the code, we set the crouch IW blend value, which I'm going to put inside here in the not aiming state. So the crouch idle to walk is going to nicely blend from 0 to 1 with the velocity. So now you can see the idle rifle animation plays when the player is idle or walking, and the run rifle animation plays when the player is running. Also when aiming, the player goes to the strafe mode. Right now the player is only looking forward while aiming. In the next video, I'm going to use inverse kinematics to make the player aim properly and also make shoulder change and leaning mechanism. So see you in the next video.